Hello everyone, welcome back to another video of our multithreading in Java series. In the last video, we discussed callables and futures. After that, I received a comment saying, please tell real life examples of how these callable and future are used in actual application. And honestly, that's a very valid question. So today I will tell you a real world example where callable and future are actually used. Let's take an example of a website like MakeMyTrip. Now in the holiday packages section, you see different curated packages. Now this is the sample of one of the packages that is sold on MakeMyTrip. Now each package here includes flights, hotels, activities and meals, correct? And this final price which is shown here, this is actually the combination of all the prices of flights plus hotel plus activity plus meals, and then on top of that a markup or a profit that MakeMyTrip wants adds over it, right? And the combination of all these four different component prices are shown here. Now for simplicity, let's consider that this package has flights, hotels and activities, correct? Now here's the important part. In a microservice architecture, flight service is a separate service, hotel service is a separate service, and activity service is a separate microservice, right? So these three are three different independent systems. And apart from this, there is also a fourth service, which is this holiday service itself, right? So as an engineer who is working on a separate microservices for curating a holiday package, so imagine that you are an engineer who is working in this holiday microservices, right? So to curate this particular package, we need to hit the APIs of these three microservices: flights, hotels and activities, right? So we hit the APIs, we get the response from these three microservices, we get the prices from those response, we add the prices, we add the markup on top of it, and then we show it here as total price, correct? So let's get on our blackboard and see what happens when we hit these three microservices sequentially and then parallelly. So first, let's see what happens when we hit these three microservices sequentially. So let's look at the math. So suppose the flight microservice takes 3 seconds to return the response. Hotel service takes 2 seconds and activity service takes 1 second, correct? So the total time will be 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is 6 seconds. Now after this, we also need to load some static details of the holiday packages like summary, description, images and all those things, correct? And post that, we will add all the prices that we have received from these three microservices, and then we will show the total package, right? So approx time will be 6 seconds plus some seconds to load the static details and then show the package, correct? Now instead of this, if we use parallelism, then what will happen? So if we hit these three services in parallel, so flight service takes 3 seconds, hotel takes 2 seconds and activity takes 1 second. So the total time taken after which we will have the response from all these services will be the max time taken among these three services, which is equal to 3 seconds, correct? Meanwhile, while you are hitting these three services, if you ensure that by the time these results are gathered from the services, you do not sit idle. So one of the thread is handling this, another thread is handling this, another thread is handling this, correct? And in parallel, if you have a separate thread which handles all the static data of package, then that is a bonus for you, correct? You will prepare static data in these 3 seconds, and once static data is prepared, then you go ahead and check the response from these three microservices. You extract the respective pricing from these three microservices, add them together, add markup on top of that, and then calculate the final price, correct? So now in the 3 seconds itself, since you have performed the static data part parallelly to this, you have all the response from these services plus you have your static data ready as well. Since you have calculated the price after receiving the responses, now you are ready to show your package on the screen, correct? So this is how it will work. If you run it parallelly, then it will only take around 3 seconds. And if you don't run it parallelly, it will take more than 6 seconds to curate a package, correct? Now a very delicate thing to notice here is, at the time when you are checking the response from these 3 services, suppose response from 2 of them are ready, right? This response from hotel and activity is ready, but one of the service is still not ready with the response. Then you cannot move forward because you need response from each of these 3 services to calculate the final package price. Therefore, the fetching of the response of these 3 services after performing the static data calculation needs to be a blocking operation. So you hit these 3 services in parallel, but when you actually start parsing the response that we have received from these 3 services, that needs to be a blocking operation. Why that needs to be a blocking operation? Because until and unless you receive response from all these 3 services, you cannot calculate the package price, correct? So we need to achieve several things here. Let's see these things one by one. So the first is, we need to achieve parallelism between these 3 services. So to achieve parallelism between these 3 services, we will create 3 threads using executor service, correct? Now the second thing is, by the time the response is gathered from these 3 services, you do not want to wait. You want to create static details of the package, right? So what will be the scenario here? From your main thread, you will go ahead and create 3 threads, T1, T2 and T3. T1 will be responsible for fetching data from flight, T2 from hotel, T3 from activity. And since these 3 threads are fetching data from the respective microservices, your main thread is now free. So in your main thread, you will go ahead and create static details of this package, correct? Now the third thing that you want to achieve is, while you are creating static details of the package, if your response is ready from these 3 services, then you will need a placeholder where the response can be stored, correct? Now you might be remembering to create a placeholder where in future you will come back and check if the response is present or not. So that can be done by using the future interface, correct? So you will use future here, right? Now the fourth point is, while fetching the response, if some service is yet to respond, right? Listen very carefully. While fetching the response from the future, if some service is yet to respond, you need to wait until the response is there, correct? So you want to create a blocking operation here. Okay, so what do you use? You use future.get to fetch the result of whatever is stored in the future, correct? And by default, this get itself is a blocking operation, correct? So this fourth point can also be done if you use future.get to fetch the response from the future object. Now the fifth thing is, after everything is received, you need to go ahead and calculate pricing and show the curated package on the screen. Very simple. So you are already fetching the prices from the future. So you add those prices, you have fetched the static details, you take that and then display the final package on screen, correct? So this is how you will use executor service and future.get, correct? Now let's see the complete workflow here. So in holiday microservice, you will go ahead and create 3 callables. You will create a flight callable, a hotel callable, and an activity callable, correct? You will use executor services to submit these 3 callables as a task to this executor service, correct? So in separate 3 threads that you have created using executor services, one thread will go ahead and fetch response for flight, another callable will go ahead and fetch from hotel, and activity callable will go ahead and fetch from activity, correct? Now since these 3 threads are fetching, your main thread is already free. So in your main thread, you will process the static data like destination info, images, package summary, tags and ratings. And after completing this processing, The third thing is to aggregate the results. At the time of aggregating the result, you will use future.get, because you want this to be a blocking call. And this future.get will fetch all the data from the future object, because all the responses will be stored in future until future.get is called. So after you got all the results, you will process that response, calculate the final price, and then you will show the final package on the screen. Correct? Now let's quickly go ahead and see how the code for this will look like. Right? So let's go ahead and check what will happen if we hit the services sequentially. Correct? So we have created a common response model called service response class. Right? So in our sequential service class, if I show you this call microservice function, this is basically mocking a microservice call. We are passing in the delay, and after that delay, our response will be returned. Correct? So this is a mock call to a microservices. So first what we are doing, we went ahead and mocked the call for flight microservices. We have given it a delay of 3 seconds. So after 3 seconds, we will have the response, and we will add that price into our total price. Correct? For hotel services, we will take 2 seconds. For activity services, we will take 1 second, and we went ahead and added those prices as well. After that, after curating the final price, we went ahead and did thread.sleep2. So this is basically simulating the loading of static data for the packages. So 2 seconds it will take to load the static data for the package. Correct? And after that, we are printing the total time taken and total package price. Correct? So what will be the total time taken? Total time will be 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is 6 seconds, plus 2 seconds to create static data. Now let's go ahead and run it and see what is our output. So let's wait for around 8 seconds. Flight, hotel, activity, we have got the response, we have curated, and the total time taken is around 8 seconds. Correct? So this is when we hit the microservices sequentially. Now let's go ahead and check our parallel microservices code. Now what are we doing in parallel? In parallel, what we did is we defined a thread pool of 3 threads. 3 threads, why? Because we want one to be flight, another to be hotel, and third one to be activity. Correct? So in our main function, we went ahead and called build holiday package. Inside the build holiday package, we have created 3 callables, each for flight, hotel, and activity. Call microservices function is the same. We are simulating the delay, simulating the microservices call here. Correct? So we went ahead and let's go ahead and give a delay of 3 seconds. So we have given a delay of 3 seconds to flight, 2 seconds to hotel, and 1 seconds to activity. Correct? So we have created these 3 callables. We went ahead and submitted those tasks to the executor services, to the thread pool that we have created. Now, meanwhile, this is fetched. Our main thread will go ahead and do thread.sleep 2 seconds. So this is simulating a static details creation. Correct? Static details for package. Now after these 2 seconds, we have created a list of futures, all these futures. Correct? And we went ahead in a for loop. We are trying to fetch the response one by one, and we are using future.get. So future.get, why we are using? Because we want fetching of the response to be a blocking operation. If we do not have something from the flight, we want to wait until there is a response from the flight. Correct? So we did for all these 3 futures. Finally, we have applied markup on top of that total price. We have received the final price, and then we are printing the total time taken. Now let's see what will be the total time taken. Right? So if you see here, your one thread, flight will take 3 seconds, hotel will take 2 seconds, activity will take 1 second. All of these 3 is running in parallel, and in parallel itself, the main thread will go ahead and fetch the static detail. So overall, we will take only 3 seconds to perform these operations. Correct? Approximately in total 3 seconds, all of this should be finished. Correct? Let's go ahead and run our application and see how much time it actually takes. If I go ahead and run this, correct? So total time taken is around 3030 milliseconds, which is around 3 seconds. Correct? So by using future executor services and callable and using parallelism, we have reduced the time taken in sequential package curation from 8 seconds to 3 seconds, right? Now in real world, a microservices fail, right? So if suppose this activity services fail for some reason, right? If there is no response from the activity services, we should give a timeout. We will wait for some time, for example 3 seconds or 4 seconds. If no response is there, we will not stop selling the holiday packages. We will go ahead and create the holiday package and final price using our flight and hotel itself, right? That is why I have used this try catch inside the for loop. So if any future.get receives any kind of exception or there is a timeout, I have used get with a timeout. If we do not receive the response from a microservices within 3 seconds, we will throw a timeout exception. We'll print this like lobby is failed due to timeout. We will skip that and then try to fetch the response from another microservices, correct? So if I go ahead and increase the timeout for activity services from 1 second to 7 seconds, so what will happen? So now how much time it will take? Now these will be performed in parallel. Meanwhile, the static data will be loaded. When I go here and call future.get for activities, at max it will wait for 3 seconds, and after 3 seconds it will throw a timeout error and our package, our final price will be calculated only using flight and hotel. So total time it will take is 3 seconds here. This 2 second will also be performed in parallel to this. So 3 seconds here and 3 seconds for this. It will wait for 3 seconds for activity services, right? So 3 plus 3, around 6 seconds it will take. So let's go ahead and run this, right? So it is waiting for activity, right? So the lob is failed and the total time taken is 6 seconds, correct? So I hope you are clear with the example, and this is how we use executor services, callable and future in real world application. And I showed you the working of holiday packages curation in MakeMyTrip, right? So I hope you liked this video. That's all for this video. Until the next video, stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye.